Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release VHS Beyond. It's a Shudder original and it's coming to Shudder on Friday, October 4th. So, yeah, another year, another VHS film from Shudder. I'm not a big fan of found footage, so I just always need to kind of give that disclaimer in these reviews. That said, one segment in particular of this one I think is well worth watching. Thankfully, it's the first solid segment. You know, they always have that kind of wraparound segment that kind of comes in between each of the whole segments. It's the first whole segment. So, honestly, if you don't want to watch the whole movie, I would just say I highly recommend just watching that first full segment and then stopping after that. But if you're into found footage or you're kind of in the middle on found footage, you might want to check this one out. But I'm going to go through each one. I'm going to rate each one. I'm going to give it an overall rating as well, and no spoilers. So let's get into it. The first story is the wraparound story I'm going to talk about. It is called Abduction, and I'm not going to give any details like any synopsis of these because since they are so short, giving any synopsis is going to give away way too much. Abduction is directed by Jay Cheel, who did How to Build a Time Machine, Helltown, and Cursed Films. Most people would have seen Cursed Films, the series on Shudder, which is awesome, really good. It's a fake documentary portion that plays in. It plays at the beginning and the end, and kind of in between each of the full segments. Yeah, it's done like fake documentary style, so it feels very much like the Cursed Film. So it looks great. It runs great. It's a great concept, I think. I'm glad they decided to go that direction. It's presented in a very polished way that makes it feel like something that's actually been on TV or actually been on Shudder. It feels a lot like Cursed Films, and you could view it like it's taken so seriously. You could view it as they are trying to be serious about this. Actually, like they're presenting you real life stuff. Mitch Horowitz is the main actor in this. He's the expert being interviewed. Awesome job. Wonderful acting. Mitch Horowitz is great. Really pulls you in, keeps your attention. Just, I was going to say mesmerizing. Not mesmerizing, but like a little bit magnetic when he's on screen, I'd say. There is some interesting real life stuff that they end up weaving into the story that they're getting at, and I think the ending is okay. A little. I like the ending more than I don't like the ending, so it's probably like a little bit more than okay. It's kind of like, oh, okay. It's that type. So, out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I give Abduction a 3-star rating. It is solid. It is not bad. So then we go to the first full segment, and this one was my favorite by far of all of them. This one is called Stork. It is directed by Jordan Downey, who did Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving 3, Critters Bounty Hunter, and Bestow My Heart, The Headhunter. I love the film The Headhunter. I think it's still on Shudder at the moment, so if you haven't seen it, 100% watch it. Very low budget, but what they were able to do with that, unbelievable. There's like no dialogue in it. It's riveting. Actually, it was really cool. Jordan Downey and his writing partner Kevin Stewart, who was the writer for this as well, and has also done Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving 3 and The Headhunter. They came to one of my watch parties after I invited them, and they talked to everyone who showed up to the watch party as we watched The Headhunter, and they gave us kind of extra information about it, some behind the scenes stuff, fielded all the questions. So not only is this my favorite segment, thankfully, they're great people. Like really good, chill guys, and I was very excited that when I saw their segment, I was able to say it's awesome, and you'll see what I mean if you check it out. So, anyway, Stork, the camera work is handled in interesting ways that isn't too shaky when it comes to a found footage film. A lot of the times when people are doing found footage films, they'll get overly shaky when they really don't need to. Downey found a really good way to kind of make it seem like it's intense, and it does make sense as being found footage, but it's still not too shaky. You can see what you need to see. You're not getting nauseous, but you're also getting that intensity of kind of like quick movements and looking all over in a limited capacity all over an environment. So you do a really good job with that. It gets to the action pretty quick and is quite riveting, especially because of the camera work. The camera work does so much with this film. It's so intelligent how the shots were chosen and the camera movements as well. Like, we're going to start with here, and we're going to go to here real quick, and then we're going to go to here real quick. It keeps the action moving in such a great way. This is one that has no dragging time whatsoever. It's very riveting. I think personally, it literally felt like a higher fidelity, more interactive looking version of a Resident Evil game. An awesome Resident Evil game. That's what it really felt like to me. And you'll see what I mean, or you'll know what I mean if you've seen it. The mix of practical effects and CGI looks great. They go together seamlessly, pretty much. You can always kind of tell when it's like CGI blood, but it's relatively quick, so you don't get a chance to fully focus on it. So it blends in pretty well with the practical effects, which the practical effects are phenomenal in this one. It has a very similar feel to the segment that was done in VHS 94 that I loved, called The Subject by Timo Tjahjanto, which was also one of the best VHS segments I think I've ever seen. And I would say Stork is also one of the best VHS segments I've ever seen. And yes, I've seen every single one of the VHS films. This is one of the best. And the last thing I'm going to say about this one is Chainsaw. If you've seen it, you know, and it's awesome. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't want to ruin anything. Chainsaw. That's all. So anyway, out of 5 stars, half stars, and play, this is getting a very good 4-star rating. This, for a very short film that's found footage, it pretty good. Pretty good. So going to the next segment, we have Dream Girl. This one was directed by Virat Paul, who did the film Recapture, written by Paul and Evan Dixon, who wrote Totem and did a segment for VHS 85, which is a pretty solid one. It has subtitles. Just know that going into it, because it is in Indian language. Virat Paul is actually of Indian descent. I think lives in Los Angeles at the moment and works primarily in Los Angeles. But it is cool to see him go to his roots for this story. And I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, that there's ever been a VHS segment that's taken place in India. So I thought that was an interesting place to put it. The acting is quite good. I really did enjoy the acting of this one. There's a pretty extended musical sequence, which is actually pretty fun. If you tell me that someone's going to put a musical sequence into a found footage, especially in a VHS, I'm going to say it's probably not going to be good. But the music was actually very catchy and good. And B, the actual performance that you're seeing is pretty fun. It was a good time. I was very surprised with that. There's a pretty uncomfortable voyeuristic aspect of this at one point, which I think is very effective when it comes to doing found footage. Unfortunately, the dialogue is pretty overkill for me. It's a little too... it tells you a little bit too much. It's too blatant. And some of the delivery of it at certain times makes it a little more over the top. It's just a little too explanatory. It's a little too on the nose. It's a little too strong. Like, less is more with the dialogue. And I just don't think they needed as much dialogue as they ended up having. It feels very talk driven when it could have been a lot more action driven. The CGI used is not the best. That's another thing. CGI is not great. And the story kind of is a little there is some solid mayhem from time to time, but the story, I thought, needed to be fleshed out a little bit more. They could have spent a lot more time on the core aspect of the story as opposed to setting up some of the stuff that they did. And it wasn't, I didn't love it. But obviously there were some really good things about it. So out of 5 stars, half stars, and play, I'm giving it an in-between. I'm very in the middle on it. 2.5 stars for Dream Girl. Now, the next segment was called Live and Let Dive. Yes, Dive. Directed by Justin Martinez, who did a segment for the original VHS, as well as a segment for the anthology film Southbound. Written by Martinez, as well as Ben Turner. The setting for this one is pretty interesting, and it feels legit for found footage. The way they handle that camera work in the initial setting of the story, I'm not trying to give anything away, it is... I've never seen that done before. It feels kind of claustrophobic. It's very effective at making you feel a part of it. and it seems like it could be something realistic. So from a found footage standpoint, you believe this stuff. So I think that was handled really well. The character interactions, unfortunately, are pretty over the top. This is a combination of the dialogue's not the best, and the performances are also not the best, especially when it comes to dialogue. It's just characters being so over the top when they're interacting with each other that kind of annoying, at least for me personally, and you'll just see that it breaks from reality with that situation. So, there's some great realism with a particular scary situation. It's extremely well shot. Extremely well shot. You'll know what I'm talking about. It's the main thing, the first big thing that really happens in this segment. I thought they kind of blew my mind with the way that they shot it and the way that they pulled it off. I was very impressed with that aspect of it. It has some good practical effects and some CGI that looks relatively nice. Not all the CGI in this is looking great, but a lot of it actually was looking pretty good, especially because it was a daylight setting for the film. Nighttime, it's a lot easier to hide kind of the rough edges on that stuff. So they did a pretty good job with that. The ending is okay. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, in between on that. If any of these segments are going to make you nauseous, this is the one. So that was one of my other problems, is it was extremely shaky throughout, extremely shaky, and that makes it hard to kind of see what's going on at times, but it also, for people like me, can make you nauseous. But it didn't in this instance, thankfully. Out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I'm giving Live and Let Dive a 3-star rating. Then the second to last one, Fur Babies. This one's written and directed by Christian Long and Justin Long, who also did Lady of the Manor directorially. Yes, it's the actor Justin Long. We all know him from a lot. It sets a goofy tone immediately, which is fun, but it also gets annoying. And there's a tonal clash going on in this film where you're kind of like, I understand that they want it to feel like kind of ridiculous, kind of over the top, but it goes too far with that, and it's just annoying and just too ridiculous to be taken, just to be considered with the other films that it's in this with. It's just too much. It's too much conceptually, and it feels to me, I'm trying to be cryptic here, but it feels to me like it is very much taken from a film that Justin Long acted in some years ago that a lot of people said was terrible, but is actually not terrible, and I actually like. And when I met him, I got him to sign something from that film. But you might get it when I'm talking about if you've seen this segment. But it feels very derivative of that. It's kind of like, but the goofiness is too much. At times it drags because some situations and conversations just go on too long. It seems like there's wasted time in this. And for something so short, it shouldn't feel like you're wasting time at all. They really needed to kind of tighten that script up. The costuming, not looking very good. Again, leans into the whole ridiculous aspect of it. It looks very low rent. Not great. A lot of things I did not like about this one. The story doesn't end up working that well because it's just too ridiculous. And like I said, especially because of all the other segments that it's lumped in with. Like, none of them are ridiculous like this. It just doesn't really work for me. So out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I would give it a 2-star rating. It's not terrible. Like, I was thinking 1.5 stars, but I'm like, nah, it's too harsh on it. I'm giving it a 2-star rating. Really wanted to like it because it was Justin Long, and I love Justin Long. Also, he's a nice guy in person, but I just didn't love it. And then the last one, Stowaway, directed by Kate Siegel. Yes, the actress Kate Siegel. Written by Mike Flanagan, her husband, yes, who is wonderful. You'd know Flanagan from Absentia, Oculus, Hush, Before I Wake, Ouija, Origin of Evil, Gerald's Game, The Haunting of Hill House, Dr. Sleep, The Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, The Midnight Club, and The Fall of the House of Usher. It's a lot. So I was excited for this one. I don't know what happened. I don't really know what happened. The acting in this is rough. That's the first thing. This is one of the roughest acting-wise. It's very slow and boring. until you get to the end. The end is more interesting, but even when you get to the end, it's handled in such a slow manner that there's no excitement to it. This was not a great way to start or to end the film. If anything, I think this one should have been in the beginning, because it is like a slow start, and people are used to slower starts for films because of having to establish stuff. But it's just so slow. It's boring. I'm sorry. There's some interesting stuff at the end, but even then, like I said, it's drawn out too long and it just goes so slowly that it's not that interesting. The story concept is very basic and not unique at all. This is stuff I've seen before. It's not been done all that differently. It's just, this feels very slapped together, unfortunately. You can't see much at key points, and the set design is severely lacking. When you can see things, the set design doesn't look very good. This one looks very low rent as well, except when it comes to the CGI. I think the CGI actually looks not only does it look good from a CGI standpoint, what they do with it looks really interesting and cool, but also beautiful at the same time, which I believe is intentional. And that's a really cool aspect of it. There are a few interesting visuals and some interesting sound design. That's the other thing. Sound design does stick out on this one, so I think that's a great achievement. I don't say that often for films because a lot of times you just don't notice the sound design. So great on the CGI and some of the visuals, great on the sound design. I love those things. I do question how this footage would actually end up being found. I don't think it fits the bill for actual found footage because I don't think there's an actual way that this footage would have been obtained to be shown. And I think that's one of the main issues with a found footage story, is if it doesn't feel realistic to be footage that is actually found, it kind of screws things up. And I think this film does that. Out of 5 stars, half stars, and play, I'm going to give it a 2-star rating. So overall, the entire VHS Beyond, when I put all those numbers together and I average them out, it's a 2.75 for me. So that would round up to a 3. So more than halfway, that's good, but also probably the lowest I've had rated of the VHSs that have come out on Shudder, unfortunately. So do with that what you will. But like I said, definitely watch Stork. Stork is phenomenal. And whatever other one sounded interesting to you in this. But anyway, thank you for taking your time to watch this. Do me a favor and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Do a thumbs up on this if you want to help me get this out there more. You can hit the notification bell button. And if you have interest, I do have memberships for my channel. Very low amount of money, but you can get some cool stuff. There's a link in there you can check out. But anyway, thank you so much for your time. Until next time, keep it brutal.